All right, Alex, go ahead, get us started.
Oh, hey, didn't see you there behind my plant, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name's Alex. It's good to see so many friends on the call, old and new. And yeah, I want to start off just thanking all of you. I imagine you're on the call because you have some role in caring for children and improving their lives. And I honestly just think that there's no more important or greater work than raising our next generation of kids and feeding them well and teaching them well as well. So that was a lot of well. So yeah, thank you for everything that you do, and that it has never been more important than it is right now. And yeah, you've always put your lives on the line to take care of our next generation, and that's clear now more than ever. So yeah, really appreciate everyone on this call. So Cooking Matters, I know many of you have heard about it, and if you haven't heard, Cooking Matters is the word. And yeah, we're nutrition education, and we're all about how to shop and prepare healthy meals on a budget. And I think it's always important to talk about why that even matters at all. I think most of you are probably familiar with the stats around Arkansas poverty and food insecurity, but as you might be able to guess, we're not doing so well. Before the global pandemic, it was estimated that about 1 out of every 5 adults and about 1 out of every 4 children and seniors in this state were food insecure, meaning that they don't have consistent access to nutritious food 3 meals a day. There's not a lot of research yet on how this pandemic has impacted that, but early estimates are that it's at least about doubled. And so we're thinking right now it's probably around at least half the kids in the state that don't always know where their next meal is going to come from, right? And this is in a country where we waste 40% of the food that we produce, and most of that is on the consumer level. So, I would have thought it's restaurants or big institutions, but it's mostly people just buying food and then it going bad, or more often than thinking it's gone bad, and then sticking it right in the trash can. So we grow more than enough food in this country to feed everyone nutritious meals many times over. But we got, about 1 out of 2 kids now food insecure. And when we look at obesity, our rates are pretty similar. And why we care about obesity, weight is actually not that great an indicator of health, but certainly 9 of the 10 leading causes of death in this country, obesity is a major risk factor. So it certainly means, that we're going to have lower quality of life and be around for less time with our loved ones, and not be able to fulfill our economic potential. And of course, we have a very expensive healthcare system, and we don't have the best health outcomes by most measures. So when we look at who's struggling, I think all of you already know that it's a lot of the same people struggling with both food insecurity and obesity. We like saying that they're kind of two sides of the same coin, and that poverty is the major cause of both, right? And there's so many reasons how we can get those two things at the same time. That the most affordable, convenient foods are often going to be really high in calories, but not as high in all those nutrients that we need to feel good. We know about food deserts, where certainly not everyone in the state has equitable access to nutritious foods. The average distance to a full service grocery store in Arkansas is something like 30 miles, right? So if you're on a tight budget, then 60 miles there and back, if you even have reliable transportation, isn't going to be an option. So and then certainly education as well. I know that's the field a lot of y'all work in, and family consumer sciences is no longer required in schools. It is an optional elective. And, I grew up with a single mom who was working all the time and didn't have time to, teach me cooking skills at home, right? So I ate a bunch of Hot Pockets and White Castle burgers. And thankfully, children's bodies are very resilient and can overcome Hot Pockets and White Castle burgers. But yeah, there's so many reasons why, really systemic reasons, kind of the way that our whole society is set up, why it's really, really challenging for, lower resource folks to be able to access nutritious foods. Thankfully, there is something, that folks can do about that. And the best way to both save more money and eat more nutritiously is just to cook more meals at home. That, we can make healthy breakfast burritos for about 50 cents a serving, that are more filling and much more delicious, I would argue, than anything you can get at Taco Bell, right? So yeah, if you're cooking at home, it's usually going to be more nutritious and more affordable if you're doing it right. But again, if you're not learning those skills at home, not learning them in school, then we just need to practice them a little bit. That learning to cut a sweet potato with a knife, is not something that is like rocket science. It's not, that hard to do once you get used to it. But for folks who don't have a lot of experience, that can be the scariest thing in the world. So that's why we do nutrition education, is just to sort of build people's confidence and show folks that, healthy food can be easy, fun, and most importantly, delicious. Next slide, please. So before there was a global pandemic, we did that primarily through two programs. One was in person. Oh, everything was in person back then. Remember those days? One was 6-session cooking courses where last an hour and a half to 2 hours a session, and usually with a group of like 8 to 12 people. And you get in the class, you all prepare a meal together, you sit down and eat it all together, and talk about some of the nutrition part of that as well. Our other program was a one-time event called Cooking Matters at the Store. And we actually walk folks around their local grocery store, wherever it is that they shop, even if it's out of the local Dollar General. We'll say, hey, we got to make this work, so let's walk around, let's talk about reading food labels and identifying whole grains and everything that we can do to empower the shopper to sort of know what we're putting in our bodies and find the good deals. And then at the end, we do the $10 challenge, where we then ask people to go through the store, put together a healthy meal for a family of 4 for $10 or less. And they all run through the store and put it together and come back and say, mine's healthier, well, mine tastes better, well, mine's more affordable. And we say, it's all good, everyone gets a $10 gift card to the store. So naturally, taking groups of people through crowded grocery stores right now, or getting them all together and cooking, is not ideal when we are dealing with a highly contagious, and dangerous infectious disease. So we have currently have still suspended all in-person programming for Cooking Matters. We are allowing certain people to restart on a case-by-case basis. Certainly as schools are getting back into session and you're gonna have that group of kids together anyway, we can talk about putting together a safety plan in place, since they're already gonna be together, to make this work as safe as possible. And then we're also working on some online programming options as well. I know Brett's gonna talk about some of that in a little bit. And on Thursday, if any of y'all teachers know Economics Arkansas, they're having their big statewide REAL conference for economics education. And we're actually gonna be premiering a universal lesson plan there that teachers can use in the classroom to apply the principles of that grocery store toward whatever subject it is you teach. So, safety is always gonna be the #1 priority, even over eating, which is, as anyone that knows me knows, I don't put much over eating, but safety is #1. And so, of course, we want to do things as safely as possible, but you'll see my contact information at the end. While this pandemic is still going on, we'd love to talk to you and specifically work out what resources we can provide and how we can best work together. Next slide, please. So what's cool, I think the coolest part about Cooking Matters is that I did not make it up myself. These people at this national nonprofit, Share Strength, did all of the work and research over the last 20 years to figure out what's the most evidence-based way to work with people to actually get them to change their shopping and eating behaviors. And, you know, besides all the things we'd expect to see, like increasing consumption of fruits and vegetables and confidence in the store, one of the really cool things was that we saw that folks were actually reporting a decrease of up to 50% in their household food insecurity just by taking these classes. So it is amazing the impact just getting people comfortable in the kitchen can have on really getting them cooking more meals at home and saving that money. And a lot of that is really built on the, you know, in-person facilitated dialogue style that Cooking Matters takes. So really letting folks, you know, sort of drive the conversation and share what they already know, because I guarantee you the folks we're working with know way more than I do about this stuff. And yeah, so that model has been really important. So we're especially challenged adapting that to online when that, you know, sort of face-to-face preparing a meal together has been such an important part of that. Next slide, please. So we will work with anyone, but I will make a special call out that our priority group are parents and caregivers of young children age 0 to 5. That's for a lot of reasons. That is the group that research has shown is actually most open to behavior change, because folks, you know, might talk about trying to eat differently for a while, but all of a sudden when it's not just them, but there's a young kid in the house or in the belly, they are a lot more willing to start to make those changes because it's not just about them anymore. And then also, our dietary habits and patterns form in our early years of life, in those first 5 years. So there's a ton of research that shows the foods that we're exposed to in those first 5 years will very much determine the variety of foods that we'll be open to trying as we grow up. So our thought is if we're working with caregivers of these kids and they're adapting these behaviors, then those children will also, you know, will be raised with those habits, and it'll just be way easier for them. And that's what we're all trying to do, right? Is just make the healthy choice the easy choice for them. So we will work with any age group. So if you work with kids in a school, if you work with seniors, adults with intellectual disabilities, whoever, we would love to partner with you. And we have some extra incentives if you work with that group. And that would include training for early childcare providers. So if you work with an early childcare center, we could even do a course, not just with the parents, but even with the staff there, because they are also caregivers of young children. Thank you, Sarah. Next slide, please. So a little bit of just how we work. I mentioned Share Our Strength is that sort of national partner that developed Cooking Matters and really designed it and did all that research. At the Arkansas Hunger Relief Alliance, we're their lead partner in the state of Arkansas. And so we do, you know, sort of anyone doing Cooking Matters in the state ideally is doing it through us so that we can give them lots of freebies and goodies. But it's really y'all, it's folks that are based in the community that are already working with participants that, you know, we come out and train you, and you're really the ones that, you know, teach the courses, decide when they happen. They could happen in school, at an after-school program, after school at a WIC clinic. You know, we can make these things happen wherever. So those are 2018 numbers. We had over 7,000 people on grocery store tours and 1,000 people through those 6-session courses. And then since we've been in Arkansas since 2011, it's been about 5,500 people through the 6-session courses and almost 26,000 people through the grocery store tours. So know that if you join this Cooking Matters network, you'll be part of a larger community that's happening all over the state and all over the country as well. And I believe next slide is last. That's me, looking all profesh. Haven't dressed up like that at home every day. I apologize. Yes, that is me. That is my contact information. I would love to talk to you about how we can make nutrition education work in your community with your population. However you do it, I think we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end, or feel free to chat them to me or email or call me whenever. And again, thank you for what you do. And Brett is really cool, so you're very lucky.
Thanks, Alex, for that awesome overview of Cooking Matters and for throwing your contact information in the slides here. If people have any questions coming in about Cooking Matters or the Hunger Relief Alliance or just food security in our state, I encourage you to throw them into the chat, and we'll make space and time for that after Brett has finished going through everything about apple seeds. And so I'm excited to introduce Brett Williams, who's the program director over at Apple Seeds, which is in Northwest Arkansas in Fayetteville. Brett is originally from Connecticut, but made Arkansas and Apple Seeds her home 6 years ago. And Apple Seeds is a nonprofit teaching farm that focuses on connecting students to where their food comes from, providing hands-on nutrition education, and helping students feel confident and excited to prepare their own healthy recipes. She's passionate about creating engaging, safe, and fun opportunities for kids to build their own relationship with the earth, fresh food, and nutrition. I'm going to pass it to you, Brett.
Thanks, Sarah. Hi, everyone. I wish I was a product of a food baby. I feel like I am, though. So thanks for that term, Alex. And thanks for covering the need. I did not think to include that. Just thinking that everyone in the conversation might be aware, but it is always great to kind of lay that foundation for why we all do what we do and how important it is. And I guess one thing to kind of reiterate, I think that is most relevant to Apple Seeds' mission is that 9 out of 10 kids don't eat the recommended amount of fruits and vegetables. So while Apple Seeds may not be an integral part of food security necessarily, what our main goal is to ensure that when children have the opportunity and access to fresh fruits and vegetables, they feel more willing to try it, they feel excited to eat it, and they know what to do with it and that it's approachable. So I think I would say of all the statistics, that's one that's definitely most relevant to Apple Seeds. So like Sarah said, our mission is to inspire healthy living through garden-based education. Apple Seeds was established in 2007 out of Ozark Natural Foods in Fayetteville. A group of passionate individuals decided that they really wanted to focus on connecting kids with where food came from. And we started out really just focused on school gardens and kind of helping schools to start and sustain those gardens, having teachers kind of commit to stewardship of the gardens and helping them to create curriculum so that it would be utilized when we moved on. About 6 years ago, we started our own teaching farm, and it was about 5,000 square feet. And a year after that, we realized that that was not near enough to be able to focus on the need that was in this community. So we moved to 2 acres. It's actually part of one of the parks in the city. In Gully Park, and we've been here for about 4.5 years, and we've grown to reach about 10,000 students annually through our field trips to the farm, cooking classes on the farm and in the schools. So a little history about Apple Seeds. We've come a long way in a short time frame. So pre-COVID, we had about 5 programs that were our main methods of reaching students. We focus on elementary students, but our programs did reach K through 12. Farm Lab is our oldest program, and it's woven with science, math, and literacy, really focused on integrating essential standards and curriculum into the garden. That kind of came about as a recognizable need for schools to have standards met in order to be a field trip that teachers would consider. But everything that we do has an overtone of inspiring healthy living. So whenever kids come to the farm, it's really about nutrition education and connecting them with where their food comes from, getting them hands-on in the garden, planting and harvesting, and just really connecting with the food. So Farm Lab was for 1st, 2nd, and 4th grade. We had cooking in the schools, which was literally just that. We would bring the kitchen and the farm to the kids in 3rd and middle school. And so we focused on nutrition education. Again, there was some math and science woven in, but students would talk a little bit about nutrition, learn about nutrition labels, and then prepare a healthy snack together in groups. And then they would leave that program with a bag of produce and a recipe to encourage replication at home. And we were seeing about 54% of students were replicating the recipe that they learned in the classroom back at home, which was really great. It was something more like 65 or 70 were using the produce, which I don't care if you make our recipe, as long as you're eating it, that's our end goal. Farm to Table was kind of our looser, more culinary based program that was just geared to get students out to the farm. They would spend about 2 hours out here harvesting, learning different culinary skills, connecting and working together to make different recipes. And then they would set the table, make flower bouquets, and just sit down to enjoy kind of a healthy farm-based meal together. Growing My Plate is connected to Cooking Matters. That program came out of Cooking Matters. A group of individuals came together to utilize the foundational curriculum that they had created, but to make it more garden focused. So Growing My Plate is a 6-course cooking class, but based on garden grown food. So the recipes are really vegetable focused. Each of the lessons are tied into the garden. And so that's something that we're so grateful to have been able to work with the Hunger Relief Alliance on, and the Children's Hospital. And I think it was is a very successful program. We're obviously just at a place where we're pausing, trying to identify the best direction to go in over the next 6 or so months with that. And we also did garden education workshops. So we did workshops for teachers and garden educators, as well as fruit tree care workshops and other workshops for the community, to just get other stewards of learning feeling like they felt confident to be able to also be proponents of this message and get kids excited about garden grown food. Apple Seeds is a nonprofit, and we are funded in a few different ways. So we had a couple of annual fundraisers every year. Traditionally, we have a farm dinner, which brings about 150 people out to the farm with local chefs to kind of just talk about our mission, to get people connected with the farm. We also had a brunch and a picnic. And then we did monthly kitchen table, smaller 30 person dinners. And currently we're doing picnic baskets, just to kind of give you guys an idea of how, 3/4 of the way that Apple Seeds traditionally has been able to kind of fund their programmings have halted. So we are really lucky to have had grants to support the new direction that we're going in. So Sarah, you can go to the next slide. Which is virtual. It hurt for a couple of months to say virtual, and still I think I wince a little bit when I say that word. But I think we're really confident in what we're going to and have been able to provide on that virtual realm. And so while we have halted all in-person programs for students, our mission stays the same. We want to introduce students to where their food comes from and provide opportunities for them to get excited and create connections with fruits and veggies. So we don't just want to create videos so that we can continue to teach nutrition education. We want to continue to bring the farm to them, which is our biggest asset. So not having them here is going to be a challenge to maneuver how to get the same results, but I think something that I have seen from a lot of other trainings is that the expectations of virtual and distance learning have to kind of be shifted. So we're really just focused on making connections with food or for kids with food while focusing on other standards that can help them, can help us get these videos out by utilizing those essential standards. So we are focused on creating quality cross-curricular content for elementary teachers and all stewards of children's learning. So we're hoping that the resources that we create can be utilized by after-school programs, homeschool educators, traditional teachers, whomever. And we're hoping to focus on adaptability, given that today we think we know what school will look like, but it may totally change tomorrow. So the hope is that these videos can be delivered either in person in school or at home through Google Classroom, but also flexible to allow for self-guided, for them to be self-guided by the students, that they can join in with a blank piece of paper, or if there's a community that's more involved, to have our workbooks and to really enhance the extensions and the other curriculum connections that we're trying to make. We're also going to provide extension ideas for teachers to address the second tier learning across multiple standards. So here's our video. Here's a great template that you can use to then teach, 3 or 4 additional lessons to your students throughout the next couple of weeks, being able to reference that. So those are our goals, is basically to not just create stuff to create it, but to really listen to teachers, to listen to educators on what they want and what they need, which I know is we have limited time to teach essential standards. So how can we use that approach of incorporating cross-curricular concepts to be able to teach nutrition education and to be able to connect them with fruits and veggies and the garden, and just get them excited. Next slide. So we can kind of dive a little bit into what we have been creating, what's been created, what is in the works to create. So for grade 3, the video that we have produced is an adaptation of our Cooking in the Schools program. It's a 14-minute video focusing on fractions, identifying components of nutrition labels, identifying food choices to promote health, and reading recipes. So this video was created early in the spring when we realized we had a grant to report to in early April and no students to reach. We couldn't go in the school. So this was our kind of first attempt at creating content virtually, and I think our team did a pretty good job. We partnered with PBS in early May, and this video was shown as a part of the Arkansas AMI on PBS. So my team quickly learned how to film and edit, and I think that they really did an incredible job. So this video is going to get some tweaks this summer to be able to, I think, be at its best, and then it will be available for educators in the fall. Next slide. Grade 4 is an adaptation of our farm lab field trip, focusing on grade-specific standards. So while that field trip in person was reaching 1st, 2nd, and 4th, we have filmed and are editing grade 4, and that's what we know will be available in the fall. So the focus on that is on plant adaptations, multiplication, how to use a nutrition label, understanding what nutrients do for our bodies, and how to read a recipe. And so we utilize the garden to kind of dive deeper into these standards that a lot of elementary schools feel are essential. And we're able to just harvest a bunch of different colored veggies to really focus on eating a rainbow and what nutrients do for our bodies. And this will have an optional workbook to either go on Google Classroom or for teachers to print out and distribute to students. And everything that we're creating will also have a teacher guide. So there will be timestamps that allow for pauses, whether they're in the classroom or at home, for students to kind of either soak in the information more or to take more time on an activity that the video may not allow for. Yeah, so that's Farm Lab Grade 4, which will be also available in the fall. Currently, we have recipe videos going up on our YouTube channel. We have been trying to produce these weekly. They're short 3 to 5 minute videos that focus on basic culinary skills, nutrition education, and connecting students with how the food grows. They are definitely geared towards elementary and middle school students, but they're a lot of fun for a whole family. We've heard a lot of people saying, we watched this with our kids and we made the radish pickles. So the goal with these videos is to kind of to create a connection in something that doesn't take a time commitment. So someone could just be researching something to do with a radish, but then have some nutrition education woven into it. Yeah, so those are completely free and available on our YouTube channel, as well as our Facebook. I don't know if this is in another slide, so I'll go ahead and chat about that now. The way that we have been utilizing these, I think most efficiently, is that we've been partnering with libraries to kind of share our resources. So our team is putting a lot of effort into creating these, and I think the next step is making the connections, which is why this conversation is so wonderful, so that people know that these resources are available and that they get utilized. And so we found that libraries are a great platform to share these videos and to connect with community outside of schools. And we have even partnered to distribute produce bags and pair with a certain video so that 15 to 20 families can pick up a bag of produce and then watch the video and cook together. So we're trying to promote that, not only the kids connecting with the food, but the families kind of engaging together in the kitchen. We have also been creating gardening videos for those individuals who are either new to gardening or are looking for a specific tip or trick, which might be great for incoming service members if you have one at your school, or if you are the steward of your school garden. Our farm manager, Kale, has a plethora of knowledge that he's been sharing through those videos, which are also on our YouTube. Thanks for sharing that, Sarah. We can go to the next slide. About 50% of what we're doing right now is food distribution. So while in normal era, Appleseeds was not necessarily focused on food security, or what should I say, a key player in food security, it's been a really wonderful thing to be able to really focus on that. So everything that we're growing on the farm is going directly to students in need throughout Northwest Arkansas. So we've partnered with different communities each month to make sure that the families that need it most have access to fresh, healthy food. And I should say, not only what we have been growing, our farmer really utilized the space as best as he could to kind of grow almost twice what he planned to grow, so that we could optimize what we're able to provide families. So the produce bags are paired with English and Spanish recipes that correlate to what the produce is. And we've mainly partnered with school meal distribution points, libraries, and school-based pantries, so that we know that the food is getting to students and students that need it. Since April, we have distributed just over 2,000 pounds of produce. That was an awesome milestone we just hit last week. We can go ahead and awesome. Okay, so upcoming resources. We can talk a little bit more about Growing My Plate. So that's the 6-course program. It's a garden-focused culinary education focused on increasing students' confidence in the kitchen, nutrition education, understanding, and consumption of fruits and vegetables. So this late summer and early fall, we're going to focus on creating virtual lessons that can either stand alone as a delivery method for the program or to support in-person instruction. So we have not piloted a virtual model of this program yet, but that will be Appleseed's role and goal in the fall, is to identify best practices. I think ideal situation is like Alex, a group of kids, a small group of students are already learning together, and then this curriculum can be utilized in person, as that's probably how it's most effective. But we don't want to just give up while we have this lull in the opportunity to see students. So there will be 5 or so nutrition education videos that will each pair with a recipe video. And our hope is that facilitators, so like Alex was saying, that volunteer leader, would utilize those to then teach the kids, but also create a cohort that can come together either live via Zoom, or maybe outside socially distanced to share their experience in the kitchen. And part of that program is actually providing students with the produce and ingredients that they would need to make some of these recipes. And so because there are still components that require purchasing and time, there are stipends created with that program, stipends available for that program. So winter, spring 2021, there will absolutely be stipends available to facilitate that program, whether it be in person or virtually with support of facilitators for their students. And so I would imagine we'll begin to recruit and just kind of seek out applicants for that late fall. So be on the lookout for Growing My Plate and what's next for that. The other thing that we will have available are adaptable cross-curricular videos for K through 5. So we have finished 3rd and 4th grade, but we're looking for what's next. I believe we'll go for 2nd grade next, but if there are grade levels where you feel like there is a gap in resources available, whether that's virtual resources or print resources, we'll have a team kind of focused on creating farm-based resources that can connect kids with math, science, and literacy, but also highlighting fruits and veggies. So hopefully it's a win-win for everyone. Next slide. Yeah, and that's my contact info. If you guys want to email me, I am open to suggestions on gaps you see in the curriculum that's available, insight into what teachers find really useful and what they're hoping to get out of partnerships this fall, as well as our YouTube channel and our Facebook and Instagram.
Thanks so much, Brett. That was a great recap of apple seeds and all the virtual lessons that are coming out and Growing My Plate. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I will mention that Jennifer jumped in and said that that was a great food distribution program when you were talking about all the work that Kale is putting in as the farm manager, and then the work that you and your whole team have done to connect with schools and libraries up in Northwest Arkansas. So hats off to all of you there, and that's really exciting. So great, we got to the point where we heard a little bit about the Hunger Relief Alliance and food insecurity in our state, along with Cooking Matters from Alex. And Brett, finished us off there with virtual lessons from Apple Seeds and the work that they've done with school meals and their Growing My Plate curriculum. We wanted to leave some time here at the end for people to add questions into the chat box that you might have about teaching nutrition education, or just like connecting with them in the future, anything that might have sparked your interest as they were sharing. So we'll just leave it open for some space and time. I will go to the next slide and pop a poll in for you all to respond to on Zoom, just about like if this was helpful, and kind of next steps that you need. And then for the next like 6 or so minutes, we'll just leave this space open for people to unmute or to add questions into the chat. And we'll be here to answer those. And we're super thankful to everyone who joined. I see that people are saying thanks to both you, Brett and Alex, for all your hard work. And Alex also threw in the economic training around food that you were sharing, in case people want access to that. So I will go to the next slide and I'll open the poll. Please feel free to unmute yourself to ask any questions. Now, you should have the poll launch and you'll see it right on the front of your screen, but if it doesn't, let me know and I can put the questions in the chat box for you, but you should see it in just a second. Hey, Brett and Alex, while we're waiting for some questions to come in, what's been like one technique that both of you have done while teaching to keep like engagement up with students or with participants?
Sure. So I'll borrow this from my colleague Sam. I mean, I find kids very intimidating. They are, they're all over the place. They're just hot messes. But she likes doing this thing called listening llamas, because llamas have their ears up and their mouths closed. So if you need everyone's attention, there's a lot of ways. Some people do the clap thing, but we just do listening llama. If you see one, you put it up and you act like a llama.
Have you tried that one virtually yet, Alex?
That's so awesome.
No, I just use my host powers and just mute everybody.
What about you, Brett? Do you have any good classroom management techniques that you use?
A lot, but they vary just by, I think actually for apple seeds, the biggest benefit is identifying ahead of time what classroom management method the teacher or the after school program uses, because they tend to, that gets their attention because they think you're a stranger, and then all of a sudden the magic word that calls them back to focus. So for anyone who works with kids, maybe not on a repeated basis, figuring out what it is that those people who see them every day use is probably what would be my recommendation.
That's an awesome one, yeah, to follow in suit with what their teacher has already created. Mm-hmm. I always love to get really soft and quiet, like I'm trying to whisper a secret, and all the kids are like, oh, I really want to know what they're saying right now, right? Instead of, if it's really loud, getting really soft as the facilitator, I've found to be really successful with teaching kids. And then when we're talking about farm-based or nutrition-based education, just making sure to have enough materials for every student to be able to be using and tangibly like interacting with whatever's happening in the lesson, and not having to maybe share it, or just like having their own space that they can be learning by doing. Any other questions jumping in? We got some LOLs coming from your llama, Alex. I see some people, throwing it in there. I'm going to stop sharing our screen now. And thank you everyone who filled out the poll. If you have any final questions, I think that Alex, Brett, and I will stay on for the next few minutes if you have those specific. But we've really appreciated all of your time for coming today and for listening, and we hope that you gleaned something great out of this. Alex and Brett will, I'll be sharing out the PowerPoint and slides, and I'll include their contact information for all of you in case you want to reach out to them. But yeah, we just really appreciate all your work in farm to school and in nutrition education, and it takes a whole community and team. But when we're working with kids and then impacting their health, we know that this work is really valuable. So thank you to Alex, thank you to Brett, and thank you to all of you for joining today. And I see Anna doing some llamas as snaps and llamas as our goodbye. Bye, everyone.
Is it cool if I hop in with a really quick question?
Please, Anna.
Okay. So I think, Brett, you had mentioned that either the program that Apple Seeds is partnered with, or Apple Seeds looks to seek out low-income families that are in need of the food that y'all are producing. And I'm just wondering, how do y'all find them? Or are they meant to reach out to you? Is this something like who's receiving SNAP, who gets it? Or like, I guess, can you walk me through that process a little bit?
Absolutely. It was a new process. So when the majority of our programs are intended to reach schools or students that are low income. So we're reaching schools that are 50% or higher free and reduced. And that was kind of a cut or straightforward process. With food distribution, which I think is what you're referring to, it was a little bit more complicated once you went outside of the school meal distribution points. So that was the easy route, was to partner with schools that are high free and reduced that were still doing their summer meal pickup. And so we would go and drop off the produce and put a table next to those meals. And so I would say the great majority of the people who are getting those meals while they're open to anyone, the majority of people taking those are families that need it and students that need it. When we're partnering with libraries, they're able to approach it with a little bit more intentionality, and they know their community members and they know their families. So that's just kind of more on trusting the libraries that they know the people who need the food. Let's see, we got libraries, school districts. Yeah, I think that's probably mainly it, is identifying the school districts that have that high need. The only additional unique situation is we're working with a teacher who's extremely involved in her community in Springdale to find an apartment complex to find out how we can partner with an apartment complex that does not have access to a grocery store and is in a neighborhood that would really benefit from having the produce directly there, where they might not even be able to get to a school site. So I think it's just conversations and digging to find out who knows where those individuals are and how best to reach them.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks for the question, Anna. That was a good one.